Hi everyone. So in this video I'll be going through my handmade toned paper sketchbook. So this was bound with toned paper, this brown Kraft paper it's called. It was like a test to see if I could bind a sketchbook with this paper and what it would be like. I started the first sketch here in November 2020 and just finished it this month, nearly 2 years later. So here I was testing out charcoal pencils, and I just used a baby Numbat reference photo image, playing around with some white and black charcoal. And I think I enjoyed using it, but as you can see, it smudges on the opposite side. So I decided not to continue drawing with it, at least not in the sketchbook. And I don't have any fixatives or anything. I haven't been using them, charcoal, in my sketchbooks. Yeah, so down here, this horseshoe crab was a workshop that I did with Matthias Lannis. He did this workshop online as part of the Wild Wonder Conference in 2020, which I watched the recorded videos. And this was an exercise, I can't remember if it was part of Matthias's workshop or not, but just to see like how light you can go and how dark you can go. But this was using watercolor pencils, so white and black watercolor pencils. Then in February 2021, we started our journey across Australia. We left Sydney, packed up, sent our things to Perth, and then we took the next 3 months to drive over, essentially. And this was still during COVID, but we were very lucky and never got stuck in one place or got COVID along the way. So this was still in New South Wales. We were up in like the Alpine region and camping. So I think I was on my own while my partner went for a drive or for a walk somewhere, and I wanted to nature journal. And there was a kookaburra on these fence posts, and he kept swooping down and hunting. Crimson rosella, yeah, more of the kookaburra sketches. And that's still part of the kookaburra. Then, end of March, I obviously didn't get to do much between February and March in this sketchbook, but I did do some in my first nature journal sketchbook, and I'll leave a link for it up here. But yeah, at the end of March we went to Dubbo Zoo and I tried to nature journal the meerkats, but of course they're moving everywhere. It was quite a hot day too. So here the meerkats again, different poses. Then I moved on to the giraffes and I wasn't super happy with how they came out. I guess just trying to get as much down as I could. We were walking around the zoo, and it's quite a big zoo, and like I said, it was a hot day, so didn't want to stop for too long and stand in the sun either. Dubbo Zoo has like a whole safari sort of set of zoo animals, so they had elephants and giraffes and zebras and things. And then this is now in September, and we have made it to Perth, to Western Australia. We're living in Dawesville, which is like in Mandurah, an hour south of Perth. This was, I think, in preparation for Inktober. I was trying to work out what tools I would be using. So I went out and just found a bottle brush along the side of the road and a marker, which I can't remember which one I used, but I definitely did not enjoy using it. This is that test page. And then I think we go into Inktober. So I decided on the pens I would use, and so I followed Marley Piper's prompt lists sometimes, and other times just did my own ideas. But his first one was Gnarly Old Tree, which I really enjoyed doing. And I really like this sketchbook for nature journaling because of its small size. Didn't take too much time to fill a page, but always very satisfying. So that wasn't the first. Second was doing landscapitos. So I did 3 small ones when I was visiting my brother in Bunbury. Back in Dawesville, I went for a walk and found some grey fantails that were hopping between bushes and flying around, and that was fun to sort of try and capture these fast-moving birds. Then on the 4th, I had found this Banksia flower and taken it home. It had been broken or chewed off, I'm not sure. So picked it up off the road and brought it home. Tried to do something a little bit more detailed. On the 5th, I went down to the estuary and found a dead crab, or perhaps not dead, but the exoskeleton of a crab that it had shed. That was really interesting and really fun. Can definitely recommend nature journaling crabs because they're really cool. Lots of interesting parts to them. Then on the 6th, I went to the beach and did a soundscape. So just listened and made marks and notes about all the different sounds I could hear. Sort of focused on the audio for once rather than more visual elements that I typically do. Then on the 7th, I did the zoom in, zoom out exercise. And so I found a grass tree. Didn't have enough room to show it and not enough room to include all the interesting things I wanted to write about by zooming in and zooming out. On the 8th, it was blind contour drawings of bones. And you can actually watch most of these videos on my YouTube channel, see the time lapses for each day. Go check them out, the whole series. They'll be up in the corner too. Yeah, had a lot of fun doing blind contour drawings of bones, and this was just a bone I found by the side of the road again. So I think maybe a dead bird. Then stepped outside one day and there was a blue-tongue lizard, or a bobtail, or a skink as it's also known here. So that was my subject for reptile. Day 9. So this was a blind contour drawing, which makes it look very stumpy. I don't mind this, but again, I haven't quite got the angle right here, and then the leg pattern. Day 10 was quite a lot of fun. So doing a nighttime nature journaling session. So in advance, I wrote down the sunset, the moonset, and the moonrise, so that I could work out when I'd want to go out, what part of the phase the moon is in. I just went with a headlamp and found some spiders to nature journal mostly. I also remember looking up at the night sky, the stars, but I don't think I included that here. It would have been cool to see some other nocturnal animals, like there's quenders here, but didn't see or hear. I probably went to the wrong spot, and so I really would like to do this again sometime to a more bushland area. This was just a bit too close to suburbia still, and I guess wintertime's good for that because nighttime sets early. But it's cold. Then on day 11, I just did like an investigation of seeds. So found some different caps of the seeds, ones with or without the cap, and then ones which still had the remnants of the flowers. And I think this is what, for the following year's Inktober, was what inspired me to all the different plants and trees, because I felt like I really didn't know much about what tree this had come from. Day 12 was another Mali prompt, so tracks, and went back to the estuary and found some different bird tracks and even crab tracks on the sandbar and along the mud there. Then on the 13th, it was a comic, and I was up with at my parents' house north of Perth, and my dad's got an aviary, so I nature journaled the Gouldian finches there. Back in Dawesville, this is Dissection. I really enjoyed the title here. I think I had a lot of fun with that. And I remember taking my time with this and enjoying drawing the different stages and just putting down all my observations again. It takes a little bit longer, but I think it really helps stick in your mind. Whereas this one I didn't enjoy as much, and I think that's because I took on too much. I really should have just said a 2-minute sketch in each direction, which is what this is, the compass directions, the views, and I just put too much detail in, and it was a weekend, I think, and lots of cars driving past, and just not very enjoyable. Then textures. This was, I think, a day that I wasn't feeling super motivated, so went out just to the tree in the front yard and decided to investigate different textures of the tree, so different parts of it. Sort of along the same vein, I decided to do a comparison of different peppermint tree leaves that I found in the park. So I brought them back home and did a comparison there. That was fun for an exploration. A bit more scientific, so if you want to try and include more numbers, definitely recommend doing a comparison of the same or different things even. The other thing with these different leaves is that it's easy to take home a whole bunch of them and then nature journal them from the comfort of your own home. So Inktober for me is pretty much in winter. It's quite rainy and wet sometimes and windy, so not always the best conditions to be going outside. So recommend to bring home little treasures sometimes for nature journaling on the days that you don't want to go out. On the 18th of October, it's the Australian bird count. So I went out for 1 or 2 bird counts, and these were the birds I saw, and I have a tally next to them as well. Then I just chose 2 of them to draw in a bit more detail, and I had fun with the title as well again. Fun fact, I have a feeling this was wrong. I don't think I actually saw a western spinebill. I think it instead was a rainbow bee-eater, because we identified them later, and these are much smaller and wouldn't be at the top of a tree where I saw it. They tend to like hide in bushes a bit more. Day 19 was a map, and I remember coming back at the end of the challenge to include all those places. I always love maps, so this was good fun. Day 20 was Sky Scapitos. I really enjoyed this, but I'm not sure that the textures were quite what I wanted to include here. And then 21 was mammals, so I found the roos at the park, and just they were grazing on the grass. And yeah, just had fun with the different parts and positions and observations. On the 22nd, I went for a walk, and I didn't really know what I wanted to nature journal, but then next to the path, this peppermint tree caught my eye. And as I started doing the flowers on it, then I got distracted by bees and bugs and the snails that are everywhere here, and they just stick to absolutely everything. Grass, leaves, trees, furniture, everything. And then on the 23rd, I went back to the beach and did a sit spot session and sort of just wrote what was happening in my thoughts while I tried to show the wave and the whitewash in amongst the rocks by the shore there, and bits of seaweed that are washed up. Very calming, relaxing place for me. I always love going to the beach. 24 was a hard one for me, abiotic nature, and that's another prompt from Marley, but I had a lot of fun doing it. Again, really good for, in this case, for adding more numbers and a bit more scientific thought processes that I went down. So I can imagine things like geology, rocks, that kind of thing fitting into this abiotic nature. In this case, I tried to do the wind and the effects of the wind. Then on the 25th, it was all about scene change, and my plan was to do the tree out the front and then come back to it later. And I think I did go look at it again later, but I never wrote up my observations. A poem, which I like poems, but I have to be in the right mood for them, I find. And I don't think it was that day. It was a grey, stormy day, but then the sun came through. And on the 27th, I went for another walk, and similar to textures, this time I decided to look for patterns. And rather than like patterns I could see, I was more thinking about how could I simplify the different branches, leaves of these plants into a pattern. So how could I symbolize what I could see very simply? That was good fun. 28th was flock, and I had a bit of trouble, I think. Found some galahs at the playground, but then they flew away, so then I kept walking. They were having a good lot of fun, hanging upside down off the swings and everything. But then I moved on when they disappeared and found some pigeons. So that was just a kind of a quick session. Hard to do, because I guess birds can fly away. On the 29th, I ran a Perth Nature Journal Club up at Lake Jorbup in Perth. I nature journaled separately for the club session, but then afterwards went to see if I could spot a snake-necked turtle and found one, so I was very happy with that and nature journaled that. Then on the 30th and the 31st, had some easy ones. A pet. I don't have a pet myself, but my parents' cat Zeke was very happy to just lie in the bed next to me, give me different poses to study. And then the fridge, I just found a tomato that had been cut open and did a study of that. Wrote a lot more than I thought I would too. So after Inktober, I think I needed a bit of a break, so it's a week later, and I just went to the park and found some ravens. They were chasing each other. One was studying little fenced-off trees, saplings, and had fun again with the grey. I like using the grey to start off a drawing if I'm not very sure about it, and then I can go over it with the black once I am more confident with it. Then in December, we were visiting Manjimup. So, and there was a tree in the backyard, which I think was a New Zealand Christmas tree. So I used coloured pencils for this for the first time. Quite enjoyed that. And yeah, just half an hour filling in this page during some quiet time. Then into 2022, found a dead monarch butterfly out the front door. So I felt like I needed to honour it and do that by nature journaling it. And I really enjoyed looking at the wings and looking at it in so much more detail. And I've since then done a few more insects as well. I always find I enjoy doing insects. I don't find them a very interesting subject until I'm nature journaling. So this red-eyed wattle, I've got a video of as well. I realized when I was doing Inktober last year, 2022, that this red-eyed wattle was quite similar to the other wattle that I was looking at. And then back to the estuary, just looking, I think I might have filmed this one too, some cormorants. Then in March, I was up at my parents' house again and spotted these yellow-rumped thornbills and was really happy to be able to identify them. They're small and fast, but once I saw their yellow rumps, they've now become much easier to identify, and because they come like in a group and they hop in a certain manner, I get used to them, and I've since been able to identify them close to where I live too sometimes here. Then the red-tailed cockatoos, again, this is back at my parents' house. They love I think it's a jarrah tree there, and they were being very noisy and staying for most afternoons, flying around, and yeah, love these guys. I explored using coloured pencils a little bit more here, but I found them a bit hard to get the right colours with. I think these were colour pencil and not watercolour pencil. And then this is a moth, again, that noticed it had been laying eggs near the front door, and then a few days later the moth was sort of dying on the ground but still alive. And then later on, I think it had actually died. So I nature journaled what it looked like when it was on the wall with all its eggs. And I don't know if I went back to it later to add to it. But yeah, sad, but also very, very cool moth to look at and study. And then this one, I accidentally drew in it upside down, as you can tell, and that's because both sides of my sketchbook looked the same until I wrote back on that one, and I think I just was holding it and flipped it the wrong way and never checked once I got started. But this was down by the estuary again, the Peel Inlet, and I found the she oak and was trying to focus on being very mindful for that one. And I think this is also... maybe not, but I particularly like using the Tombow Fudinowski pen here. It writes, I like how you can vary the thickness just a little bit, writes very easy, good to draw with, but it does seem to dry out on this paper a little bit. So then in June, I was, I think, house sitting for my parents for a while and joined the went to Kondula Bushland and joined the WA Natural History Lovers group for a walk there. And that was a lot of fun. So got to meet a whole bunch of naturalists, and we went for this walk, and there were some experts there, and they were explaining and naming all these plants and things that they were spotting along the walk. I could barely keep up with writing it down, and even then I didn't necessarily know, what they were using Latin scientific names, so I didn't know how to spell them. And I tried to do a little bit of drawing if we stopped. And they also gave me this Banksia flower, which was on the ground because of the cockatoos. And so I think I drew this while I was waiting at one point, just holding it in my hand, but I've got it and still plan to do a better drawing of it one day. But yeah, I think it was a 2-hour event or something, Definitely keen to go on more of these walks with them. And I will be giving a talk and a workshop to the WA Natural History Club this year. So I'm looking forward to giving those very soon. And yes, just more. So we looked at flowers, we looked at fungi, we looked at plants and trees. And then this is now jump forward to Inktober. So there's a bit of from June to October, a bit of a gap. And you'll see that I start here on day 2, and that's because I didn't just use this book for Inktober, but I also was using a little watercolor handmade book as well, just to have a little bit of a different style. But I think I ended up doing more in this book. And also, I thought I didn't have enough pages left to do all of Inktober in here, but I think I counted it wrong. Also, I later on did multiple entries on like the same page, so probably saved a few pages that way. And so here, I think I mentioned this a bit earlier, but the plan was to go out and find plants that live around me that I thought were native and endemic, and do a little bit of research on them, see if I can identify them down to the species level, and also create like a botanical style drawing. But I think I gave up on trying to make them too nice because it was just a bit too much pressure for myself to do during the challenge. So in the end, I think I loosened up a lot more. The Jacksonia, and then I do think this was actually a tulip tree, peppermint tree, and the melaleuca paperbark. I think it's a swamp paperbark. The grass trees again, and I found out that there's more than one that live around here. So these ones are the, they're the more common ones, but there's also some really slender ones. Grevilleas, the one-sided bottle brush, which I found very interesting and very intriguing, and apparently it had changed from this family, I'm not sure, to the melaleuca. Gelatin waxes, and then actually I don't think I ever did research for these two. This might have been from a sundew, and this one I can't remember. I think I might have looked it up, but then I never came back and wrote it down, which is bad. Another bottle brush. This one, I went to a park, and this grevillea here, I have a feeling it's not native in that it's a cross breed, and even though it's in a park, I think it was planted there. This one looked like another melaleuca. And the Diploleina, that was cool. Only seen one, but I think since then I've spotted a few more here and there around the place. I really loved the smoke bush, and love seeing them in the bush. They're very distinctive with their white flowers. They're like kangaroo paw flowers on the end. That's what they remind me of. But it's like a huge tree. And this was interesting to do the sort of the two, like this is actually supposed to be an inset on the end of one of these branches, but it didn't quite work out that well. And then the Conostylus, which is special to this bushland around here, but you can get it elsewhere, different species, I believe. The snake bush and the cow kicks, I was starting to look for orchids and found them in the bush nearby. And the purple flag, or comma, in the Noongar name. This one reminded me of Jacksonia, but it was different enough that I thought I could do again. So the colours were different, and it had spiky leaves. This was a beautiful purple and pink flower bush, Camellia. And then the cat's paw. So happy when I found a cat's paw. Bright orange. Beautiful. And the sundews had always been catching my eye. So I thought I would enjoy drawing the details a lot more, but in the end I think I just got very frustrated. So I think I have to be in the right mood when I'm doing all the details. The Mary, I had a lot of fun. I tried to do the tree, a leaf, and then the gum nuts, which are quite big, like probably they can get to this size, compared to the jarrah seeds, which are like that big. The clematis creeper, and finally a leopard sun orchid, which didn't expect to find. That one was like a late bloomer. Very pretty, sort of yellow with like these dark orange blotches on it. And I think this wasn't done every single day, but I tried to catch up, and I struggled a bit more with the Inktober this year, but was happy to finish it within a few days of October ending. And then in November, we went camping to Dryandra Woodland National Park, and in the hopes of finding numbats and, of course, other creatures too, that this woodland really important for their conservation. So we camped at Congellan Campground, set up the tent and stayed there for 3 nights. What I love about camping is that at night you get all the creatures come with you, whereas if we'd stayed in the village accommodation, we probably wouldn't have seen half of these animals. Unfortunately, we missed out on the Barnamia experience, which is like a conservation, a fenced-off area, but you have to book in advance, and unfortunately they were full, so we couldn't join in on those. But we went for our own walks and like saw heaps of birds, tried to sort of tell the story of what was happening in different parts of the day. And we were lucky, we did spot a numbat. So just saw a fluffy grey blur, and then bang, saw the numbat. And I couldn't write this at the time, but made lots of mental notes and came back to it later that evening, I think, to write it all down. And again, had lots of fun with the colour pencil and grey markers too, different grey markers. So we went on a walk and just trying to get all the different birds and plants that we saw. And then the second night we saw a quoll. And then on Wednesday we went for another drive and saw a second numbat, a monitor lizard. And then we went for the night walk ourselves and saw again lots of different wildlife. I will be making a video about the Dryandra camping and also a separate one for the numbat because it's the WA fauna emblem. So in my Australian emblem series, I'll be making one specifically for the numbat there. So keep a lookout for those videos. And then this is like the second last page of the sketchbook. Christmas time, went to Yallingup, and this was the view from the room of a sailboat and the ocean. Very peaceful and relaxing. And I had a flower from Dryandra that I'd stuck in. The flowers were very pretty too in Dryandra. And then just sort of to finish off the sketchbook, really tried to find a couple more things to nature journal. And so there was this little cocoon on my basil leaf, brought it inside and nature journaled that with just pencils. And then here, another bug found in the garden. Here I always like to, on the back page, test out all the pens and everything that I'm going to use. And I do actually have another page, but it was again testing out markers. And then this is my niece who also wanted to play with the markers. And that's it. So now it's time to make my next sketchbook. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging around. Let me know if you've got any questions about anything. I hope you enjoyed the stories behind all the entries, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.